All right, Battle Cats, this is one for the books. The Community Action Team is doing some great conversations tonight about compelling, forcing our incoming governor, Glen Youngkin, to be great. To be great, not just good, but to be great for Black Virginians. And with me tonight is our partner in crime, our partner in rhyme, our partner in uplift, the good brother Conrad Chesventer,
I need to
part of
work
the
on my
Community
rhyming.
Action Team, Beach Brothers. And we also have the good minister Gary McCullum from Do the Right Thing, Do the Right Things.org. Do the Right Things.org. You can find the Community Action Team and Do the Right Things.org on Facebook. And here's the conversation. This is really not just about Governor elect or Governor Youngkin. This is about any leader that's going to represent us. We need to make sure that we compel any leader, you know, who's going to represent our interests to make sure they represent our interests. So I'm so glad and I'm so blessed, and we're all going to be blessed to have the good brother Gary McCullum on the platform with us tonight from DoTheRightThings.org. Hey, tell us a little bit about Do the Right Things, Gary.
Well, first, let me just thank you and Comrade for this opportunity to be with you guys. Really appreciate what you guys are doing, particularly the fact that you guys, like me, share this belief that now is not the time to be silent. And I think that's where folks like myself, Dr. Allen, the other Dr. James Allen, the other co-founder of Do the Right Things, we've just come to the conclusion that with everything that's going on in our community right now, you cannot be silent. There are people out there who've been silenced. Their voices have not been heard. And those of us who have been blessed by God to have certain skills, talents, and abilities, we have to speak up. I mean, Dr. King said now it's all, the time is right. It is always right to do the right thing. And so we're going to speak truth to power. We're going to say what needs to be said. We're going to show up where we need to show up. We're going to speak for those, again, who can't seem to be heard by those in power. And we don't necessarily think this is an R or D thing, a Republican or Democrat or left or right issue. It's actually a right or wrong issue. It's about those who've been marginalized and those who have, I believe, not used their power in the best interest of helping the people that they are supposed to be serving. And so that's what Do the Right Things is. Check us out. That's DUE, not DO, but DUE, therightthings.org. And we purposely did it with DUE because, frankly, we're all due. We're due for better leadership. We're due for fair housing laws. We're due for higher wages. We're due for a better education system that would teach us the truth and not just some made up stuff. We're due for criminal justice reform and better policing and police oversight and voting rights that makes it easier, not harder to vote. We're due those things. And so that's why we're doing what we're doing. So come in, check us out, join us, get on our mailing list, and let's make a difference in our community.
Ashe, amen. Give power to that. Hey, so Do the Right Things. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them at their website. I have it down there. You can also find the Community Action Team, and that's the group that Brother Conrad and I are involved with. And the Community Action Team is really focused on one thing. We have a really simple mission statement, and that's wake the sleeping giant. Wake the sleeping giant. So the Black community, commonly called Black people, you want to call yourself copper-colored, melanated, Moorish, indigenous, whatever term you want to go with, we're good with that. But we find that particular community is not as politically involved as we can be. So we're going to say that, I know that there's a big fight against the word woke right now. But we want to wake the sleeping giant. We want everyone involved to get involved. See, all of the politics that happen impact us. So it's important for us to be involved. And tonight we're going to talk about compelling and forcing, Governor Youngkin to do the things that are important for the black community. And I know this is a really different concept because for far too many of us, we just sat back and said, oh, my team lost, so we'll just have to wait for 4 years and we're going to argue and complain and we're going to moan and, for 4 years. No. Or our team won, we're going to celebrate for 4 years and we're not going to ask for it. No. There are things that need to be addressed. We need to really compel our agenda because everyone whose agenda gets addressed compels it. And you can look historically in our great country of the United States of America, and you'll find that if we go back to the civil rights period, Dr. King and all the other civil rights soldiers, they were compelling something. It wasn't just, the marching that you saw on the streets was just the public facing saying that there's an injustice in our country. But behind the scenes, there was negotiations, there was compelling, there was forcing, there was engagement. And we're going to talk about 4 things tonight, pretty much: pressure, involvement, oversight, and engagement. That's what the community action team was going to discuss tonight: pressure, involvement, oversight, and engagement. And I'm so glad that we have the good brother minister Gary McCullum, the powerhouse that he is, so we can really deal with some of these things. So from a do the right thing perspective, what things can we do? What things can the community do to ensure that the governor that we're going to have is going to be good for us, is going to be great for us? What things from the do the right things perspective can we focus on?
I think, and I love what you're doing, talking about pressure, involvement, oversight, and engagement. Before I talk about what I believe one of the first things we can do, I would also, say to you that, with regard to waking the sleeping giant, that while this is clearly an issue within the Black community, which is not a holistic community, as we know, we're very diverse, but it's also about white people, frankly, and other ethnicities, races that are not in the power structure. I think this is about moneyed interests versus non-moneyed interests. And so you have a lot of organizations out there that, frankly, they're getting laws passed, they're getting policies implemented that are going to help their bottom line at the expense of everybody else. And clearly it affects Black people. We say that when America catches a cold, Black America, we get pneumonia,
True.
It affects us, but it's affecting a lot of other people too. And so I think this is an economic issue. But back to your question, what can we do, and what do we try to do and do the right things? We believe that the best disinfectant is sunlight. If you look at our logo, we have this. It looks like a sun because that's what we want to do. We want to expose those things that, frankly, they go on in closed session. They go on in the back rooms. These decisions that are being made. And I'll give you one example right now. We have a situation in Virginia Beach. That's why I live in Virginia Beach, where the city of Virginia Beach is spending millions of dollars right now appealing a federal ruling that ruled that the election system in Virginia Beach was discriminatory and illegal, and that it violated the 1965 Voting Rights Act. But right now, you have leadership at the city council that are spending millions of our tax dollars, not theirs, but our money, appealing this case. And yet they've never taken a vote on that. They've never voted to actually do that, but yet they're spending this money. And so we're letting everybody know this is not right. And they need to know that you have people on council spending our money in this way. And at the same time they're spending that kind of money, they're not spending money to pay the people a fair wage who pick up your trash.
Wait. So you're telling me, and actually I know this, but our city council members are prioritizing districts in their favor rather than their constituents. They're
And their
putting
parents.
politics over people again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to your point, how do we force politicians to do the right thing? You provide sunlight. You make sure that the things that are being done, frankly, in the dark, they're being done, and they're not on the front page of the Virginia Pilot. They're not on, Wavy. They're not being reported the way that we're trying to make sure that people are aware of those issues. And so that's why we're very engaged. Again, follow us at dotherighttthings.org. Look at what we're doing in terms of our social media advertising. But we're trying to get the word out. And it's not just things that these government and organizations are doing that are bad. We're saying when you do the right thing, we're going to call that out too. So we're gonna just make sure that that those things that are being done, that somebody knows that they're being watched.
That's why I'd like to also give a little bit of props to Councilman Rouse, because he is providing some of that sunlight. He did that this week by posting that on his Facebook, so we could read the letter of the over $1.7 million that the city is going to try and appeal something they already lost, and they will lose again. But all they want to do is effectively be petty.
Yeah.
Well, okay. If they're effectively being petty, who are they? You mentioned Councilman Ross is adding sunlight. Let's shine a little sunlight on those who are doing the right thing for the constituents of Virginia Beach. Who else, other than Rouse, is doing the right things in that regard?
I can tell you on this particular issue around voting, the only two council people that I've heard from that are clearly against the city spending taxpayer dollars to support this appeal is Councilman Wooten and Councilman Rouse. Those are the only two. But what's going to happen on Tuesday, and this is this Tuesday, January 18th, there's a resolution. And so we're going to see, I've heard or seen statements from the vice mayor saying that, or from legal from the city saying the majority of council supports an appeal, but they've never taken a vote on it. They didn't do a referendum when they could have done last year. They didn't do it. So now we're going to see who actually wants to continue to spend millions of dollars supporting appeal to protect a voting system that was ruled discriminatory by a federal judge. Who actually is going to be for that? That's what we're going to find out on Tuesday.
So we have city council people who are standing up for discriminatory practices.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting because 7 of those 11 people, as you know, are going to be on the ballot in November. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be clear, where they stand.
We have the good viewer Stone who's leaving the comment, name the bad apples. And I would say to Stone, I want you to research the bad apples.
Well, I would say to Stone to make sure you're watching, come out to the city council on Tuesday. If you can't get there live, get there, watch it, be online, do something. But you're going to see when that resolution comes forward, you're going to see how they voted.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, hey, come forward. Like, the good brother Minister Gary said, come forward, watch or be there in person, but also do some research and share that research. That's what the community action team is. We actually want to activate. We want the community to take action in their interest. And so, look, far too long, people of African descent, indigenous people, and Americans in general have seen politicians as either superstars or saviors. And so, Stone, if you want to find out who the bad apples are, do your research and share that these people are not acting like superstars. These people are not acting like saviors. They're actually supporting discriminatory practices.
Yeah.
Court-decided discriminatory practices.
As you're talking, I'm reminded of, because you're talking about how do we put pressure. I think the thing you're going to have to do is to recognize that you have the power to apply the pressure. You do have the power. And it reminds me of the old story of the elephant. if you ever go to the circus, and some of the circuses, Soul Circus, they still have elephants. But if you go and you see this huge, multi-ton animal, and they have it, a little chain, and it's tied to a little stake, and you wonder, how in the world can that elephant stay, secured and trapped by this little stake? I mean, as strong and as powerful as they are, what keeps them there? Well, here's the thing. When that elephant was a little baby elephant, they did that to them. And they tried to pull away from that stake. Every day they tried, and they couldn't get away. Every day, every week, every month. And then at some point they gave up. Even as they grew to this huge animal with all this power, they still believed in their mind that they didn't have the power to apply enough pressure to move away from that stake. And what we're trying to do is to say, no, you have the power. You have the power to apply the pressure. You can move the stake, and you can get people out of office who are not doing what's right for the people.
You're absolutely right, Gary. And unfortunately, I think that too many of the elders in our community, I call them the civil rights soldiers, saw a wall. As they were marching for civil rights and fighting for civil, they found a wall. And similar to that elephant, they don't see that we can cross that wall. So they think everything is honky-dory. They think that everything is okay, or they think that there's nothing else that can be done. And I've actually heard that from a lot of our civil rights soldiers. And so it's so refreshing, because I know you're a little older than me, at least a year older than me.
That's about more than that, I think. My daughter keeps me young, though, that's for sure.
Okay, I say that. Too many of us have really gotten to the belief system that there's nothing that we can do. We can complain about it, but what are we going to do? Who are they going to listen to? And then we saw in 2020, we saw the uprisings, and there was more policy changes within a year, within a summer, the summer into the wintertime, than it happened for at least 10 to 15 years. Am I correct?
That's right. That's right.
And it had nothing to do with voting. It had nothing to do with voting. And I'm not saying that voting shouldn't happen. I'm not saying that voting isn't important. I'm saying that's not our only tool, and that we can make positive change with pressure, involvement, oversight, and engagement. Yeah. So let's take a real world experiment. So we have people in the Virginia Beach City Council who are supporting what the court has already determined were discriminatory practices. How can we pressure them? Because I know some people are like, y'all can't do this. This cannot be done. And I'm not saying y'all. We're saying we. We want you involved in this experiment, in this fight, in this experience,
in
this uplift.
They should call. They should show up. They should write a letter to the editor. They can do a whole host of things by just simply letting their voice be heard, that enough is enough. And that we're not going to be silent about this issue that's going on. That how is it that you can find money to spend on this to protect a discriminatory election system, a voting system, but you can't find money to prevent daycare centers and child centers from being shut down where people need them? That you can't find money to pay public service workers, sanitation workers, people who are, out in the rain and the snow and, taking out trash and dealing with sewers and dealing with all kinds of issues, making sure that we have fresh water, making sure that this is a great place for tourists to come visit. But you can't find money to make sure that they are paid correctly, because a city of this size, our sanitation workers are the least paid in the entire country. There's something wrong with that. And so, this is what Dr. King was speaking up back in the 60s, fighting for sanitation workers. And here we are in 2022.
If I recall, they made the news last year because they were effectively a collective force.
Yes.
And city manager Dehaney and others had to respond to their action. So it just proves that there is strength in numbers, even if it is limited to just like waste management.
Yeah. So I think there are examples of that. I mean, the recent news, you saw the issue just recently. You know, we've been pushing for better community policing. We're not talking about defunding the police. I love the police. I think I sleep well at night because we have a great police force here in Virginia Beach. But at the same time, we need civilian oversight. We need an independent civilian review board, you know, with full subpoena power, with the ability to, you know, to make sure that we get to the truth if there are incidents where police officers do things that are not in the best interest of our citizens. But we saw just this week the report from the Attorney General saying that we had police investigations in Virginia Beach that falsified information. They didn't just lie to get convictions, but they actually falsified documents to pressure people in these investigations. And nobody was held accountable for that. Nobody was fired for that. Something's wrong with that kind of leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, have these city officials who were in support of these discriminatory practices spoken out and said that this should not have happened with our beautiful police force? Have they spoken out and said that the community should be better served? Have they spoken out and said those officers involved in distrust and disgraceful and inaccurate information should be addressed? Did they say that?
I'm laughing because, you know, I was told a long time ago, well, can't remember if it was as a military officer, you know, I was a special operations guy, you know, Army Ranger. I can't remember if I learned it there or if I learned it in high school or in college or in my business. But I learned a long time ago that bad news does not get better over time. That's what I learned. I just, you know, it doesn't get better. You need to deal with it like immediately. According to the reporting, the Virginia Beach authorities were made aware of this in April of last year.
April.
Yes, of 2021. April. So how many closed sessions do you think took place involving the Virginia Beach City Council where this issue came up?
Bro, less than one.
I'm sure it came up multiple times in closed session, but they were wrestling, I'm sure, with how do we deal with this? How do we hold back the public from knowing about this? When you first heard of this, again, this, according to the reporting, again, this is just reporting, public reporting, that the Attorney General reached out to local authorities in April of last year. As the mayor, as city council, when you heard about this last year, April, May, whenever this was brought to your attention, what should you have done? What was the right thing to do at that moment? Not what they did. They simply did nothing.
Absolutely. Hey, city council, you need to do the right thing. Do the right thing, like Spike Lee said. Think about it, brother Gary, Conrad. If I lie to the authorities, if I lie to the police, I'm going to jail. I'm getting charges. But if the police lie to other police, they're getting excused.
Yeah. And actually, what you said, you're right. They can actually lie to the person being charged. They can actually lie. But this went beyond. Let's be clear. What this was, they falsified evidence.
Right. They're lying to other police officers because the police officers, by law, and I don't think it's a good law, they can they can lie to the common citizen. They can do that in the midst of an investigation. I don't know why that's the case, but we allow that stupidity. But they should not be able to lie to themselves. They should not be able to lie to their authorities. So the authority should not be able to lie to their authorities.
Yeah, it's amazing. But this is where, again, back to your point, we have to make sure that we are applying that pressure. We cannot be silent, and that's why you'll see me and others showing up on Tuesday, January 18th, because we will not be silent. And stay tuned, because I think there's also being planned another rally press conference later this week on this specific issue about this falsification of evidence, which again was reported by the Attorney General this week.
Well, we've discussed pressure. We've discussed involvement. How can oversight be used to address the situation with this lying police department in Virginia Beach? And I'm not talking about the entirety of the police department. Once again, we support the police, but we think those who are lying, those who are falsifying evidence, those who are harming our citizens should be punished.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so how can oversight help?
I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about the police department, and I think most of your listeners and you guys surely are aware of the effort to put together an independent citizens review board to provide oversight over our police department. Which, again, I think that's needed. It needs to have the teeth, subpoena power, and investigative staff to do everything possible to make sure that while we are charging the police to protect and serve, we can't have rogue police officers out here just simply taking advantage of citizens. We can't have that. And so you need to have this oversight board to make sure that that's the case. But I think oversight goes beyond just simply the police department. I think as a citizen, we should be providing oversight by making sure that we're aware of what's going on in our particular cities. And especially with the technology that we have today, maybe you can't show up at city council. Maybe you can't show up at the school board. Maybe you can't do that. But there's nothing stopping you from pulling down the agenda. The agenda in Virginia Beach, for example, comes out every Thursday before the Tuesday staff meeting, city council meeting. Pull the agenda item up. Look at the detailed agenda item and see how your taxpayer dollars are being used. When the city starts to go through its budgetary process, here in the February, March, April, May timeframe, look at those documents, see how your money is being spent, and make sure that you're aligning yourself with organizations. Maybe you don't have all the time and the resources, but align yourself with organizations like Do the Right Things, local NAACP, Community Action Team. Align yourself with organizations who you can lend your voice to those organizations so that we can provide that kind of oversight. That's how you have to do it, because these folks, they work for us. We don't work for them. They work for us.
They work for us. And speaking of somebody who works for us, Delegate John McGuire recently authored and you can find this on our Facebook page, HB 110, which it basically is saying we want to pull the right for the municipalities, the cities, to have any level of police oversight from a citizenry level. In other words, we want to pull the citizen review boards that we just started fighting for in many of our cities in Virginia, that we just were able to receive a go-ahead for in Virginia Beach. This guy recently pushed a bill, and I Conrad, you're the Politico. Gary, you're the Politico, so I don't know how all the inner workings of this works, but I know he forwarded a bill to say, hey, we want to pull the ability for the cities to have oversight on our police officers.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they wanted to do. I mean, the way the bill the way the current law says is that the cities have the options to do it. It's not mandatory. And that's why you see pushback from several cities, counties, municipalities around the state. Virginia Beach has kind of, hasn't been the most proactive, but it's kind of drug its feet, but it's going down that path. But that's what they're trying to do. This bill that he's proposed is saying, no, we don't want you to do it at all. You don't even have the right, cities, to do it at all. And it just, frankly, it speaks to the fact that, I know police officers. I probably talk to one at least weekly. My last conversation this week was with one on Tuesday. And they want this oversight because 99% of them are doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
They really do. And they want to increase the trust level that they have with communities. And so we cannot have a situation where we have, this kind of legislation coming through, because all that does, frankly, is, I believe, is it actually puts those police officers in more danger because it decreases the trust level even more so. And when you have distrust in the community, it doesn't protect the police, and frankly, it doesn't even protect the citizens. It puts everybody at risk. We need to increase the trust level, and that's what this kind of legislation is trying to do away with. And so I'm praying, and we're going to be speaking out against it, and hopefully it'll die a death in this General Assembly.
Yeah, and in a sense, we also have to reach out, I think, beyond just our electeds, but also try to reach out to, say, the area of John McGuire, which I think is the northern Richmond area. But we also got to make sure we're talking more than just the House of Delegates, because that is Republican right now. That very well could pass. But the Senate of Virginia is still a Democrat. So we also would have to apply pressure on Democrats, too, to make sure they hold the line.
Yeah.
True. Now, one of the things that our elder teachers have taught us is that Black empowerment is actually fully realized when we can tangibly support those who are acting in our favor, and we can tangibly punish those who are acting out of our favor. Delegate McGuire is acting out of our favor in the Black community and the overall community, because overarching, even just looking at Virginia Beach, overarching, the community said, hey, we'd like to have some greater police oversight. The police department said, hey, we like to have some greater police oversight. Now, of course, the Fraternal Order of Police and the Police Benevolent League, and they're on code for them. They're not on code for us. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. They do what they're going to do. But overarchingly, the community said, hey, this is what we want. So we need to find ways to punish people like Delegate John McGuire. And I know some people are saying, Seiko, you're talking crazy. But that's empowerment. And I'm not here to kumbaya or to go along and get along. I'm here to make sure that the community can get exactly what the community has been asking for. And when it comes down to the Black community, we've been asking since the 1800s to have a fairer system of justice. Since the 1800s, and every year since the 1800s, we've had Congress, we've had the Senate, we've had the city councils who smack us in the face and say, nope, we're not going to do it. So we're going to be looking really hard at our city council people, and I'm expecting our city council people in Norfolk, in Portsmouth, in Chesapeake, in Suffolk, in Virginia Beach, in Newport News, in Hampton, to say we don't support what Delegate McGuire is pushing, and he needs to push it back someplace else. And if these city people don't stand up for us, we need to stop standing up for them.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because while he's not, in our local area, in the Hampton Roads area, he's a part of a political party that does have representation in our area. And so when we start looking at people like, a Glenn Davis, when we start looking at people like a Tim Anderson, and we start looking at people in our local area, who are Republicans, where do you stand on this? Do you agree with that?
We have to ask the question.
That's exactly what we're going to be asking those questions. Are you in favor of that? And that's one of the issues. I mean, I mentioned Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is pushing some bills right now. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but mandating, addressing this whole issue of school resource officers and really, I mean, if you look at the legislation, it could really, talk about how you could see this increase in the criminalization of a lot of our young people. And I get where he's trying to go with this, but how does that affect our community? In Virginia Beach, we've had issues with that already. I mean, we've been talking for years, the Virginia Beach Ministers Conference. We've been talking about how, African-American males, they're 12% of the school population. But at one point, I think they were 22, 23% of the in-school suspensions. So, again, I know African-American males, they may act up, but to that degree, I mean, something's not right with those numbers. And so now if you're criminalizing this behavior also, now you're basically, you're sending that kid who may have just made a stupid mistake. And I'm not talking about something that's major, because, our young people can do some pretty, drastic things. But how can you take just some silly mistake and then put that child on a path where there's no recovery? And that's what we have to speak up against.
Right. It looks like we need to speak up and have some level of engagement with Tim Anderson and John McGuire. Oh, well, actually, I think we need to simply punish John McGuire. But let's have some conversation with Tim Anderson. That might be a little something we can work with. And Yasmin, I appreciate your great comment. Yasmin says, what you just said is a perfect example of what speaking truth to power looks like. So, Brother
Amen.
Minister Gary, we appreciate everything that you said. So now let's get to the heart of the matter. Tonight, we wanted to give some examples. We need to compel action. We need to get some folk to stop cooning. But how can we force, compel, encourage, handhold, walk with, use any soft or hard term you want to use to make sure that Governor Youngkin is great for blacks and then great for the entire state of Virginia as well. And I did put blacks before Virginia. I did that purposefully because I think that those of us who are of African and indigenous descent, whether we were here first, whether we came here through enslavement, or if we came here through, immigrated here, whatever. We've put ourselves behind everybody else for far too long. And because of that, it's my position. I might be wrong. I doubt it. I might be wrong. But because we've put ourselves behind everything else, trying to support everybody else, thinking that they will support us, we've been pushed back for years. And that's why we've been asking for the same thing since the 1800s. So, what can we do to force, compel, pray, encourage the good brother, Governor Youngkin to be great for blacks? And I got a chance to meet Governor Youngkin twice in person. Shook his hand twice, had conversations with him twice when he was running. As a part of the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, I got a chance to interview him, and we vetted him for his position. Interestingly enough, as a member of the Virginia Beach African American Political Action group, he didn't show up. He showed up for the Black Caucus, but he didn't show up for Virginia Beach APAC. That kind of speaks volumes. But honestly, Terry McCullough didn't show up for the Hampton Roads Black Caucus, but did show up for Virginia Beach APAC. So that speaks volumes. Let's get back to the point. What can we do to force Governor Youngkin to be great for us? What do you say, Conrad? And then we'll go to the good brother minister, Gary. Conrad.
I have greatly liked the idea of actually going to Richmond. In my brief few years of being involved in politics, I have also been able to go to the General Assembly. And I've seen various groups like Americans for Prosperity. Lobby Day is big because you really get to see the numbers of people both inside the Pocahontas building and outside of it. That seems to be something that the politicians respond to, is actually just the numbers of people. You actually see that locally too, but when it gets to the heart of trying to reach the governor, you got to go to where he is at. He wanted to see Virginia when he's running to get Virginia voters, but now he could just sort of hang out in Richmond for the next few years and just sign a bunch of laws that are going to arrive on his desk from the General Assembly. So you got to make sure you first apply pressure, and that's definitely something we want to do, but you got to do it where they're at, and that would be at the General Assembly. I say first start there at the General Assembly so we as a public are influencing the laws that will even land on his desk. And then we also got to make sure that we're contacting his office before he would sign these things. He's got an emailed office. He's got a line just like the General Assembly does. And that people need to make their voice heard. And I would say a group like Community Action Team, group like Do the Right Things, we could be voices literally speaking to them. And that's a good first step. And we also got to encourage people watching this show tonight. And then they got to encourage everyone around them to also do that too. We just got to grow the numbers of people applying the pressure.
Brother McCullum.
Yeah, I think, Conrad, I agree. I guess I'll start off by saying one thing. Whether you voted for Governor Youngkin or not, Governor Youngkin, if you are a citizen of Virginia, works for you. I want to say that one more time. Whether you voted for Governor Youngkin or not, if you are a citizen of Virginia, he works for you. So let's start that. If someone works for you, then they need to listen to you. That's his responsibility. And so I would say to anyone, and we're talking about Black folks, again, we traditionally, most African Americans, as of late, have traditionally sided with Democratic politicians. Governor Youngkin is a Republican. But whether you voted for him or not, he works for you. And therefore, just like the Virginia NAACP, who met with him and his representatives, they went there and presented their 7 agenda items, presented those items to the governor, saying this is what we expect around education and healthcare and housing and environmental and climate justice and criminal justice, juvenile justice reform, and workforce and labor and economic empowerment and voting rights and political representation. They presented those issues to him, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to, and if he refuses to meet with us, we're also going to let people know that that's the case. So that's what you have to do. You have to understand that he works for you.
All right. I love that. What's interesting is one of our comments, and let me go ahead and get this ready. I'm probably going to upset somebody. I'm probably really going to upset somebody. So that's like asking, how do we get him out of the pocket of Bruce Thompson, who's now funding his inaugural celebration? Deeply rooted local hate, hoping for the best, though. That's a comment from one of our viewers. And hey, viewer, I'm not sure who you are. I love you. Stop cooning. All right, because here's the position that I have. Just because the idea seems a little incredulous to you doesn't mean that it's not achievable. And just because Bruce Thompson is funding his inaugural celebration doesn't mean that he cannot act on our agenda items. So if the NAACP has presented 7 placements that they want Governor Youngkin to support, then tomorrow you, Facebook user, should present Governor Youngkin's office with the same 7 points. And then Do the Right Thing can present the same 7 points. And then next week, I'll present the same 7 points. And we're going to say, look, if you don't rock with these 7 points, we're going to punish you. And we're not going to, take our belt off and spank them. We're not doing that. That's silly. But my point is, we cannot allow ourselves to say, oh, that's like da-da-da-da-da, because you don't believe that we have the power to do it. We have the power. We've used the power, and we got to stop believing that we don't have the power. Because if you believe you can do something, you can achieve it. If you don't believe you can do something, you're right too. And based upon that comment, I got to do it. Stop cooning. All right.
Yeah, remember that our ultimate...
the other thing I would say too is that, don't get distracted by what Bruce is doing. I mean, Bruce is doing his thing, so you do your thing. Let's be clear. What that comment of the governor being in Bruce's pocket. I mean, the governor is a multi-millionaire. Let's just be clear about that. Okay, so I get your point out of the pocket of that's not what we're talking about here. The issue is that how he got elected and the money that he got to get elected, that's irrelevant. And the money for the inauguration, that's all window dressing. Let's talk about governing now. This is not about getting elected. He's been elected. And he only has one term in Virginia. So let's forget about, getting elected. He's now the governor. And guess what? He works for you. He works for me.
He doesn't respond or represent the millions of dollars from Bruce Thompson because he represents the millions of voters of Virginia.
Exactly. That's where we have to be. And so you need to make sure that your voice is heard. And that we cannot say, oh, well, he's a Republican and I didn't vote Republican, therefore I can't go up and talk. No, listen, I meet with Republicans, Democrats, independents, anybody, because I learned from a very dear friend. I won't say his name, but he gave me a quote. He said, listen, I don't have permanent friends or enemies. I have permanent interests. And those interests, because the people can change. They can be for something one day and they can be against it the next. But we can't be waffling on what our interests are. And for me, my interests, I come out of the, I'm a minister. I come out of the vein of Amos. And when you start treating poor and disadvantaged people wrong, to me, that's just ungodly. And somebody has to speak up so that justice can roll.
Whoa, you use the term ungodly. I want to remind the Facebook person who made that statement. And once again, we're not sure who you are. We love you the same. And bless you and your family and everybody around you. We hope that everything in your life is blessed. But I will say that if we're going to go with the ungodly, we want to bring up, Minister Gary is a great man of the cloth. He's a minister of the Bible, a Christian minister. So let's go to the good book. In that story of the talents,
yes.
One person buried their talents, right? That's like saying, so if we go with the mentality of this comment, that's like burying the talents.
Yeah.
All right. So what did the good master say about the servant who buried their talents?
Wicked.
They were called wicked.
And slow.
And what else?
And
slothful.
Yeah.
So, brother, this is a wicked and slothful position to hold.
You're bad and you lazy. I'm gonna put it in our term. You bad and you lazy. You know what I mean? You just bad.
So I want to highlight another comment that really takes the road that we're pushing. Great point, Conrad. So you got salutes. Yasmin says, I didn't vote for Youngkin, and I plan to be in his ear starting next week in the area of homelessness and mental health. Didn't vote for him, but I'm still going to work with him because I have an interest in homelessness and mental health. See, that's not wicked. That's not slothful. That's not bad. That's not lazy. That's proactive. That's empowerment. That's what we need more of.
Yes.
No days off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I'll be honest with you, I ran for the state senate in 2015. And I think people thought that, well, hey, he only got 46% of the vote. He didn't win. So he'll just go and, play golf, hang out with his daughter, and that'd be the end of it. But people don't understand that the reason why I decided to leave Cox and retire when I retired and to do what I did was not because of a career move. It wasn't about that. I wasn't doing this for me. I was doing this because it was a calling, that there were some things that I thought needed to be done in our community. And so it didn't matter to me whether I won or lose. The way I looked at it is, the only way I would lose is if I didn't run. That's how I looked at it. And so by me running, it was clear that that I was going to not be silent in our community. And so what I find so strange is that when I see people who run for political office, and this is, to both of you guys, I applaud you, because both of you have run for political office. You did not, quote unquote, win your election, but you won. And the reason that I say you won is because you didn't leave the battlefield. You have stayed in the fight, because you know that while this involved you, it wasn't about you. And that's what we need. We need people who know that this is not, it's not about you. It's about the next generation. Now, what are we going to hand? Who are we going to hand this baton to? This next generation that's coming behind us, so that this world can be a better place than when we got here. So my hat's off to both of you guys for what you're doing.
Well, I was following your lead, good brother. You're not only my brother, you're my mentor, and I appreciate everything that you've done. I've said this earlier before we started the stream, that you stood up at the NAACP banquet and stated that I'm going to be a truth teller. And if the Democrats are doing well, I'm going to tell the truth. If the Republicans are doing well, I'm going to tell the truth. But if either one of them are not doing the right thing, I'm going to tell the truth. And I think that's important for us. So, look, we have about 9 minutes left. I don't want to make this a long conversation. We're starting the conversation. Look, here's the deal. Pressure, involvement, oversight, engagement. If we just start with those four, now there are probably 15, 20 others that we can add to the pot. Your tool belt has more than just a knife, a hammer, a screwdriver, and pliers. But you can start. You can start with that. You might not be able to build the house, but you can fix part of the house. And right now we need to fix our house, our Senate, our city council, our cities. And of course, we have to fix some things within ourselves as well. But let's start with pressure, involvement, oversight, engagement. And that's exactly what Gary has been exemplar in. He's shown pressure, involvement, oversight, engagement. And we need to do the same so we can make sure that our governor, Glen Youngkin, is great for Black Americans, Black Virginians, and Virginians as a whole.
Can I say one thing about that? I mean,
Please do.
I think people, one of the things, Scripture tells us that we perish for the lack of knowledge. And I think a lot of times we just don't realize how things work within our community. And I think if we could just spend some time figuring out how your local city operates. How does your government work? I mean, you're paying taxes, so you're spending money on this stuff. Why don't you figure out how it works? So many of us are just ignorant, unaware of what actually happens in our community and how our government works and how it really should be working for us. And so I would hope that people would take the time to either do their own research or to, again, affiliate with organizations like ours so that they can learn about these issues. Because you got to be informed about what's going on. That's what people are counting on. The people that are making these crazy decisions, that are taking advantage of people, they count on most of the people being uninformed about what's going on. That's how they're able to do what they do. That people they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they say knowledge is power, and I guess the power is relying on a lot of non-knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, if knowledge is power, then activity is the light switch. So the power doesn't come on until you turn on that light switch. So let's turn the power on. Let's be involved. Let's have oversight. Let's force oversight. Let's force engagement. Let's force pressure. Because this is our state. Mm-hmm. So let's make our state a more beautiful and beneficial place than we inherited it, like right. The Kwanzaa principle says.
Can I say one other thing? Somebody made that comment about, Bruce and giving all this money to Youngkin and being in the pocket and all this stuff. Well, why don't you go to VPAP, the Virginia Public Access Project, and see exactly how much money Bruce Thompson gave to Glen Youngkin's campaign? Why don't you go do that? And then once you do that and see the number, I've done it, but I'm not going to say what the number is because I know what it is. But once you do that, then ask this question. What if 100,000 people gave $5? Just $5. The money that you spent on a Vente, I don't go to Starbucks because I don't like Starbucks coffee, but you know what I mean. If you just took $5 and gave it to a politician or political action committee or somebody that's doing the right thing, if 100,000 people gave $5, guess what that number is? Just do the math. That's $500,000. So if the people would come together and do the right thing, I don't care what the Bruces around the world are doing, because it's not that many of them. That's the power that we're talking about. That's the pressure that can be applied. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to galvanize people. I'm not looking for millionaires. We're looking for the person working at 7-Eleven, the person, we want those people, who can give $5 to a political campaign, because it does take money. I see somebody's actually doing the research on that.
Yeah, I want it to be an example. So if you said go to VPAP and look it up, we're going to look it up right now.
Yeah, look at his biggest donors. You can go do it. He gave himself. You see the number there, right?
Wow, he gave himself $21,043,150.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the entire thing, on his side was about 70 million. And yeah.
Right. So somebody thinking he's in the pocket of anybody. No.
He was in his own pocket.
He's in his own pocket.
His own pocket.
What's interesting is Suzanne Youngkin gave $10,000, so he must love her. Paul Youngkin gave $427, and Don Youngkin gave $250. I'm wondering if those are his children. That's interesting. But probably the point is, you can salute everyone that funded whatever, because you put your money where your mouth is. Or how does the canonized Bible talk about it? That you put wherever your heart is, your treasure is. Yeah. Something I can't quote.
You're in the ballpark. You're good.
Okay. But pretty much a person can go to VPAP, type in Youngkin, and then they can find out where the big donors were. Now, to the commenters' credit, they talked about his inaugural celebration. Will that be here?
It'll show up at some point. It probably won't be there yet, but yeah, there's a fundraising arm for that, so that'll show up as well.
Okay.
At some point.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, well, Conrad, Gary gave his last point. He's probably going to come back with another last point because he's just that prolific. Conrad, any last points?
I like to last point it in terms of thinking about an energetic public. Money in politics sort of built, say, Virginia Beach up to roughly March of 2021. Then we had an unfortunate shooting that took 2 lives at the hands of police, and we had a very energetic public all of a sudden right after that made us create a civilian review board. It's just the energetic public helped create that. A couple of weeks prior to that, the city of Virginia Beach, through the money, had said that they weren't going to do that. So I just want the people who are watching this to know that an energetic public can override money depending on how energetic you are.
Amen.
Woo.
Amen. Amen.
Good point. I don't know if I can follow up with that. I'm going to leave it on that point. Hey, look, contact the community action team. Our team is focused on the community taking action. We're not going to do it for you. We might point the way. We might walk with you. We might advise. We're definitely going to pray with you. But if we can get the community to take action, Virginia will be a better place. The United States of America.
If I could say one other thing, though, just to remind people how.
Like I said, he would.
I can't leave this on a negative note because I'm just hopeful and I'm excited, frankly, about the opportunity for citizens this year with redistricting and the new districts that have been drawn. There's a great opportunity to get people in office who are going to do the right thing. And so now more than ever, I would encourage people to get involved in organizations like yours, Community Action Team, Do the Right Thing, get involved in, NAACP, organizations that are going to support the issues that you're fighting for, because this coming November, it's going to be a different ball game because of the new districts that are out there. So don't be discouraged, be excited, and feel empowered to make a difference this year.
Right. Conrad just had a great conversation with a very intelligent man who discussed the district mapping. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you can find the Community Action Team's content under the Beach Brothers Show, and you'll get a chance to watch this great video. He gave some great numbers on if the district mapping is going to be beneficial to us, or if it's going to be a hindrance, or if it's going to be a little of both. And I see a little bit of a mixed bag there. I honestly see a mixed bag, which allows me to understand that there's work for us to do. We can't think just because things were redistricted that things are in our favor. Yeah. All right. So, hey, go out there, take some action in your community. Hey, we want you to do the right thing. So
yes,
check out dotherightthing.org. Check out dotherightthing.org. You can find them on Facebook. Showed that earlier. Of course, we're the Battle Cats, the Community Action Team, aka the Battle Cats. So, hey, email us at 757battlecats@gmail.com and let's work together. I just worked with a constituent whose family member was in the prison. I can't think of which prison it was, but the lawyer said, hey, if you can get an elected official to support you, since your inmate is eligible for the CARES Act, we can really get that paperwork pushed through. But here's the interesting thing. The prison wasn't going to do the paperwork unless an elected official gave some support. So it's important for you to know your resources, because now we're on the way to getting that inmate released on the CARES Act. It was a nonviolent offense, federal time. It's all going to work out because they got in contact with their elected official. So we got them in contact with their city council representative, their mayor, their delegate, and the Hampton Roads Black Caucus as well. So look, come to us. We're going to point you to the right direction. We want the community to take action, and peace to the team.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.